New this morning, the Harris campaign is unveiling a new economic plan and a push to appeal to black male voters. The campaign says its opportunity agenda, as it is called, includes a focus on mental health and forgivable loans for black entrepreneurs. And it comes as Harris is raising new questions about Donald Trump's health and mental acuity. CNN's Kevin Liptak is with us this morning with the what and the why. Good morning, Kevin.
Yeah, and it's a relatively sweeping plan. And I think combined with her campaign travel this week, it does give you a sense of how urgently the Harris campaign views this task of trying to shore up support and enthusiasm among black men. Now, the plan is called the Opportunity Agenda for Black Men specifically. It's at its heart a plan to create wealth for black men, help them start businesses, help them protect their assets. It includes a plan to put out $1 million to $20,000 loans. It includes a plan to invest more in apprenticeship programs, hire more black teachers. There's a health initiative for ailments that specifically affect black men. And she's reiterating her support for legalizing recreational marijuana and helping black men become part of the nationwide cannabis industry. So taken together, it is quite a sweeping proposal. And it does come as Democrats warn about a slide in enthusiasm among black men specifically. This is something we heard Barack Obama warn about last week. And certainly the campaign views this now as an imperative. And you see that in her campaign travel. Today she'll be in Erie, Pennsylvania. She'll be visiting a black-owned small business. Tomorrow she's in Detroit. She's participating in a town hall hosted by Charlemagne the God. He's the host of the Breakfast Club radio show, very popular among black millennials. The fear is not necessarily that Kamala Harris is going to lose among black men. The fear is that polls show her underperforming compared to previous Democratic candidates, and in a close race, any kind of erosion could affect the outcome.
You know, Kevin, I mentioned that Harris seems to be going after Donald Trump in a new way, questioning his transparency on health.
Yeah, and this comes after she released her own health records over the weekend, a letter from her doctor. It was relatively, uninteresting. She is a healthy woman. They say that she's fit to serve. She was really doing it as a way to highlight the fact that Trump himself has not released his own health records, and she really went hard after him yesterday in North Carolina, calling on him to release his own information. Listen to what she said.
He refuses to release his medical records. I've done it. He is unwilling to do a 60 Minutes interview. Like every other major party candidate has done for more than half a century. He is unwilling to meet for a second debate. It makes you wonder, why does his staff want him to hide away? One must question, are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America?
So you really see her trying to turn the tables on Trump there, who had long accused President Biden of hiding away. She's really trying to present herself as the candidate of change and Trump as sort of an old relic. That, at the end of the day, is going to be her closing argument, and you can see her starting to present that now.
Yeah, it was a notable piece of new language from the stump. Kevin Liptak, thank you so much for your reporting this morning.
My campaign has raised $1 billion.
Oh, my Lord. How are you not winning by a landslide?
That's a question I scream into my pillow every morning.
Kamala Harris still hoping to shake things up in the waning weeks of this election. Her latest strategy is releasing details from her medical history in an attempt to bring renewed scrutiny to the health of her opponent. Harris's physician, in a letter this weekend, says Harris, who's 59 years old, is in, quote, excellent health, only suffering from mild seasonal allergies and slight nearsightedness. I mean, who among us? Harris also levying an attack against Trump, now the oldest presidential nominee in American history. It's 78 years old, that just 3 months ago he himself may have used against Joe Biden.
Only focused on himself. And he's not, but here's the thing, North Carolina, and he's not being transparent with the voters. He's not being transparent. So check this out. He refuses to release his medical records.
And joining us now, former advisor to George W. Bush and John McCain, Mark McKinnon. He is also the creator of Paramount's The Circus. Mark, if it's Monday, you're here with us. I'm so grateful to have you. Let's talk about this strategy from Harris to try to refocus on this. I mean, you've heard people like Chris Christie, for example, has been out there saying Donald Trump is not as strong of a candidate and as strong of a place now as he was in 2016. But will it work? Does it matter?
Well, good morning, Casey. Yeah, it does matter. I mean, that was Biden's problem, obviously. You can't be 66 in America and be a park ranger or a pilot, but you can run for president. And it's good for Harris to remind it that the health records is a good reminder that Donald Trump is this, is basically the same age as Biden was, and people were really concerned about Biden. So they have reason to be concerned about Trump as well. So I think it's a good strategy. And by the way, I think that while panic may not be justified, panic's a good thing. I want my voters to be panicked in the last days of an election. I don't want them to be overconfident. You want them freaked out, and that's a good thing.
Mark, speaking of panic among Democrats, I mean, the polling out over the weekend shows the race tightening, right? Both ABC and NBC showed movement from their September surveys that pulls these two closer together. I certainly am hearing from both Democrats and Republicans. People seem to think that Trump has the edge right now. I'm interested to know what you're hearing on that score and why you think the race is where it is right now.
Always thought it'd be tight, always thought it'd be close, and I'd still rather be her than him. Listen, Kamala Harris still has more upside. Trump has a ceiling. Even though he's bumping up against that ceiling, it's still a ceiling. It's just, she has more voters to get. And here's a number that I really focus on, Casey, and that is that when it was Trump v. Biden, Trump was winning new voters by +10. Harris is now winning new voters by +13. And I continue to say that this race is not so much about undecideds as it is about unregistered and new voters and getting her base out. And I just think at the end of the day that she's got more upside on new voters and she's got more upside on animated and enthusiastic Democratic voters. Yes, there's a gender gap, but who's going to be more excited? Women who feel a threat because of their reproductive rights or men because of Trump? And I always go back to George W. Bush. This whole dystopic thing that you played off the top today is, I mean, that's dark, dark stuff, Casey. And, Bush used to say, nobody's going to say things are going to hell, follow me. At the end, you've got to have a little bit of shining city on the hill in your message.
Right. And clearly he is taking the darker turn. I mean, I guess my question just remains, I mean, why are people turning back toward him in this way at this point if all of what you say is true?
It's just a tightening of the base, I think, Casey. And I just, again, I always think it was going to be close. And he's just bumping up against the ceiling. And, that base is a very dedicated base to Trump. So I think the base is just tightening and hardening, and that's it. But I still think there's a ceiling, and I still think there's more upside for Harris. So, again, I think that I don't think panic is justified, but it's a good thing to motivate your voters.
So speaking of motivating voters, Mark, the Times has this front page story today about the ground game in the final weeks and how Harris and Trump are using different strategies to get folks out. And they write this: Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, staking their chances on two radically different theories of how to win. One tried and true, the other untested. Ms. Harris's team running an expansive version of the type of field organization that's dominated politics for decades, deploying paid staff to organize and turn out every vote they can find. Mr. Trump's campaign is going after a smaller universe of less frequent voters while relying on well-funded but inexperienced outside groups to reach a broader swath of voters. I mean, one of the interesting things here to me, Mark, is that Trump's team seems to think that people that have never voted before are going to go with him, right? And in past cycles, Democrats have always been able to bank on that. They've been able to bank on, well, we get more people out. Most of those people are going to go for us. How do you think that group is breaking this time?
Well, I think that if they weren't already for Trump, that they're not likely to be. And listen, I think at the end of the day, in any enterprise, what would you rather have, paid workers or volunteers? Paid workers are always better. They're always more motivated, and they're always going to do harder work and better work. So I think the paid strategy is, works because it's worked before, and why not go with something that's worked? So using volunteers to go after voters who've never voted before, I think it's just fishing in a very small pool where there aren't very many fish with fishing rods that don't have bait on it.